Alright, so today I'm going to detail to you how the game of baseball became intertwined in local American culture, especially Orange County. I don't have a visual slides because I'm not cool like that. Quick little joke to start things off. Two friends who enjoyed baseball all their lives decided that when they were going to die, they made a pact with each other that whoever dies first has to come back and tell the other guy whether there's baseball in heaven. So 30 years go by and the first guy dies. So after about a week, he ends up visiting his friend and says, I have good news and bad news. So the friend says, okay, go ahead and give me the good news. The good news is that there is baseball in heaven. The bad news is you're the starting pitcher on Tuesday. So there you go. So in order for me to get back to my speech, you have to go to the beginning of baseball. There's a myth that Abner Doubleday in the 1860s invented baseball. And the myth goes that he was just walking in camp during the Civil War since he was a lieutenant, and that he wanted his men to do something while they were waiting for the battle to start. So in order for them to, get off their butts and not just sit around, he decided to come up with a game involving a stick and a ball, and eventually they just went from there. That's the common myth. However, in 1939, there was a guy named Alexander Cartwright who ended up inventing baseball with his friends in a neighborhood lot. They only had a little bit more than a couple cross railroad tracks to be able to start off their game of baseball, but they did have a stick and a ball, and they started rules from there. They kept going and developing the game for the next 20 years, and eventually it was found that Abner Doubleday actually wrote in his diary that his men were already playing baseball. So Abner Doubleday didn't exactly invent baseball, but it was a part of the American Civil War. Now, for baseball, in being part of the American Wars, it was also a part of World War II. In World War II, over 4,000 baseball players from both the minor and major leagues ended up hopping into the war effort. That included many stars, including Joe DiMaggio, Hank Greenberg, Billy Southworth, and Ted Williams. And 4 out of those 5 guys were from right here in Orange County. Many of them actually were stationed at the Santa Ana field base, including Joe DiMaggio. But when you listen to some of the baseball players and what their thoughts were on whether to take baseball or go to the war effort, they decided that they were actually going to intertwine both. So instead of just leading their baseball careers, they would go to the war and they would serve, but they would also play baseball while they were in the war in the Navy, such as Joe DiMaggio. While he was in the Air Force, he was stationed at the Santa Ana field base, and he ended up doing a tour with the American Army playing baseball. And most of that was actually here in Southern California. Perhaps many of you don't really know, but the field down here on Euclid and La Palma, or I'm sorry, not Euclid and La Palma, but Anaheim and La Palma, that's called Deafy Field. It was made in 1939. Joe DiMaggio played on it, so did Babe Ruth. Southern California doesn't know the history that they have in baseball. They have so many different people, including Southworth, DiMaggio, Ruth, and Jackie Robinson, who all played here on local fields right down the street, and yet no one knows what it is that the history that they're playing on. So when you take a look at some of the quotes from Joe DiMaggio when he played here in Orange County, he is quoted as saying, "This is the best field I have ever played on in my 20 years of playing baseball." And yet, the Anaheim Lions tournament just happened a couple days ago, and none of the players, when interviewed, knew that Joe DiMaggio had even stepped foot in Orange County. And he came from Orange County to be able to go to the Yankees. When you take a look at youth baseball in Orange County, you see that it's actually being played in historic proportions. Don Sabo, an ESPN researcher for baseball, found that 40 million kids in the entire United States are playing baseball from the ages of 8 to 17. If you compare that to the number of people in Texas and Oklahoma, it's more than both populations combined. And you look at that number to Orange County in Southern California, almost a fourth of them come from the baseball hotspot here in Southern California, ranging from Bakersfield down to San Diego. And then you take a look at Little League Baseball, over $30 million in TV revenue per season. Once the national stage comes along, the regionals are played here in Orange County. Not many people know that, and not many people show up, but yet it still is intertwined in the American culture, as over 40 million viewers watch every single year. The other thing I wanted to mention was that Jackie Robinson, while he ended up playing at UCLA, he was very involved in Southern California. He actually helped build over 15 different ballparks here in Southern California, and he filmed the Jackie Robinson story starring himself at Deefy Field and a couple other parks around here. Now, they still have the locker rooms down the street where Jackie Robinson ended up filming his movie about himself, and they also have a plaque there that shows Jackie Robinson and what he contributed to Orange County baseball. But the thing is that the city of Anaheim doesn't exactly want to honor it as a sacred spot in Anaheim. In fact, the plaque is actually running down. They're trying to be able to get some money together to be able to renovate it. The problem with people now today is that they think baseball isn't a sport. And actually, I would even say I agree with them. It's actually our history. Baseball has been involved in our wars, Civil War, World War I, and World War II. And it's also been involved in major events in history, involving some of the greatest stars in history coming from Southern California. So next time someone says baseball not a sport, just tell them it's our culture.
All right, Rebecca, what did you think?
I thought it was a very interesting speech. It was very informative about baseball. It taught a lot of things that I feel like none of us would have known unless we were as passionate about baseball as Ryan is. He had a great voice. He connected well with the audience. He did look down to read a couple times, but other than that, he connected well. He made a couple jokes, got the audience's attention. Sadly, the attention device, that first joke, I'm not an avid sports watcher, so sadly I didn't understand it. And I feel like that's, yeah, but I feel like that wouldn't connect as well with other not sport watchers as me. Sadly I didn't get much of the preview, so I felt fairly confused when he started talking about the wars and then just went into Southern California. Yeah, but overall it was a very good speech. He was very passionate about it.
All right, thank you. Actually, your comments are nothing to sneeze at. I thought they were pretty good for the most part. I'd maybe disagree with one or two things that you said. I like the joke. I think you should have started with the joke. You start with your topic, and that's backwards. Okay, and you need a little bit of practice with the joke so it does connect with people. I got the joke because I know bad jokes. Yeah, and I think most people figured it out, but I think you need a little bit of practice telling it because it sounds like it's, a first run through instead of, something that you know really well and you know exactly how to tell it and how the timing works out. I think there's a good thesis in here. It gets a little bit buried because you're really talking about the influence that Southern California has on baseball and why that's important. And that gets buried a little bit because you go back to the historical information about baseball, where it originated, and then you're talking about the World War II and the players, that sort of thing. And that's kind of where you get to that topic. And that maybe is all background information, but it feels like it's your whole first point in the speech instead of just background information. And as a consequence, I think it keeps us from focusing on what you're really talking about, which is that local field and the history and the influence that California has had on baseball. And I think that that's the best part of the speech, is that idea. I also like the delivery of the presentation for the most part. I think you do a very good job speaking to the audience. You kind of know your subject and you're talking about it. One of the problems, though, is when you know your subject, you feel sometimes like I can just explain it. I don't have to plan it out as much. And I think you needed a little bit more planning because things sometimes sound like they're a little bit done on the fly, and instead of being structured and focused, here's my next step, here's how it's connected, let's get through this process. I thought you had some good information. There were a couple of citations of sources that you presented. That was good. I thought you had some interesting stories to tell about the players in Southern California. I thought that was pretty good. I think the Southern California connection is really the hook in the speech, and that's what needs to be emphasized a little bit more. I'm going to have to beat you up over the visual stuff because it's right here on the evaluation form. I told you that it's a big part of the grade, and I'm ashamed of myself. I'm struggling to give you a few points here because you don't really have anything. So I'm going, okay, I'm going to give him some credit for, of all things, the damn jersey, because he does make a reference to Jackie Robinson being at UCLA. So I'll give you, I won't throw you under the bus on that. We'll give you a couple of points on that. But let's face it, this is one of those things. You've got statistical information that you're talking about, and you're making comparison to Oklahoma and Texas, and then you talk about California. I'm going, okay, well, where's the pie chart that illustrates what percentage of the population the baseball draws from Southern California? When you talk about the Little League and the regionals and where they're played, where's the map that shows all the players who come from the West part of the United States who come to California for the regional play? We ought to get something like that. When you talk about the field that's right down the street, that is the field that Joe DiMaggio played on, that they filmed sequences of the Jackie Robinson story on, I'm going, and where's the picture of the field? Where's Joe DiMaggio on the field? Where's the clip from the movie? I'm not even thinking that hard, thinking of things that you could be putting into your presentation, and it just feels underprepared as a consequence. That's something that you needed to do for the speech. All right, thank you.